All right, everyone, happy Monday. Hope everyone had a great weekend. And it is the 20th of July. I need to know this for when I document these videos. It is July 20th, okay? It's 7 p.m. This is Monday night. Anyways, a quick update on Sandy. So everyone, I believe, here knows Sandy fell and she's getting her whole workup and everything done. So she went and got her MRI today, and that took a lot out of her. She didn't get home until almost 1:30, and she had been there since 10. So she was really tired. She spent the rest of the day just kind of in bed or on the couch. And tomorrow she has to see her cardiologist, and she doesn't know how that's going to go, or if it's going to take a lot of energy and stuff out of her. So if you have meetings with her tomorrow, they'll probably be with me, or where we schedule, just depends. If you want to meet with me, I'm available. That's the big update that I have. I know she still isn't sleeping because she was texting me at 3 this morning, so she still isn't sleeping. So I'm just saying, if someone wants to knock Sandy out so she can sleep for a couple hours, let me know. But other than that, I will keep posting updates. I'll put an update in the group this evening when I find out some more about her. But tonight we have the lovely Fern, who has the most beautiful book cover I've ever seen in the world. But she's going to be talking about production timelines. I know most of you guys have published a book and kind of understand it, but she has done so many of them and can really break it down. And this doesn't even include the marketing timeline that Sandy does, which she says you should give 6 months to market your book. So, Fern, it is all yours.
All right. Well, I love PowerPoints. So I got a PowerPoint for us. So I'm going to share my screen for you guys. And we're going to talk about production timelines. So we are going to a little bit cover what Sandy's timeline includes. But we're going to start where everybody should always start, which is at the beginning. And then when we come to the end, we'll stop. So everything starts when you've got a first draft, a full first draft. Okay, so this can take an indefinite number of years or a few months, depending on so many factors in our lives. But basically, once you have your full draft, then you can start really thinking about timeline for the other pieces, okay, of the process. You might want to look at doing some critique group work before you really go into the next step, which we're going to talk about, or revise a little bit on your own. I like working with critique groups because they point out things that I don't see in my own work. And the reason I say this is because really the first major step to moving forward to production and to releasing your book from private space to public space is developmental editing. Okay, this is where we really begin to get very serious with the book. This is when you're working with a professional editor that is focused on developmental editing work. And this person's focus and this step's focus is content, okay? They're looking at your plot, they're looking at your character arcs, they're looking at the tension in your scenes, they're looking at the transitions, they're looking for motivations for your development of your themes, they're looking at the meat of your book. And they're helping you fix it. They're helping you make it stronger, deeper, more fleshed out, okay? Normally, it takes about 2 rounds of developmental editing to really say you're ready for the next step beyond that. The first round is mostly a sort of overview edit where your developmental editor will tell you, just kind of the big issues that might be needed to fix or tighten up. And then the second round usually tends to be a little bit more of a line edit where the editor is going in a little deeper into the text, to flesh out specific scenes and sections. So usually it takes 2 rounds. Sometimes it takes more, depends on, how ready the text comes to the editor. But that's the first step. editors charge for their work, and it is well worth the investment. Okay, you can get a lot from your critique group, you can get a lot from your beta readers, but having a professional work with you on editing is very worth the while. The rates go anywhere between $50 to $90 an hour. Sometimes they charge by word. There are some, especially more beginners, that may charge a flat rate. And, you know, just because they're starting out doesn't mean that they're not good. So, you know, you can always investigate them and get some references and such. If you're going to look for a publisher, and this is where we're going, I'm going to kind of show you the production timeline so that if you're going to publish yourself, you can follow this. If you're going to work with a publisher, you will understand what they're doing, okay? But if you're going to work with a publisher, the cost element is no longer yours because your publisher is covering the cost of these things. You might want to do at least one pass with a professional editor before you begin pitching your book to a publisher, just to make sure that, you know, you're putting your best foot forward for them to want to buy the book and offer you a contract, you know. But once you get a publisher, invariably, even if you've worked with a developmental editor, they will probably assign you, if they're a good publishing house, they will assign you a developmental editor who is going to work with your text and work with you and make it stronger, okay? And because within the publishing house, they're also thinking marketing, right? They're going to help you make sure that it's marketable, right? So, you know, legit publishers don't charge you, okay? They're investors, they're investing in you. So if if you have a publisher that charges, that's a red flag. That's just, you know, that hasn't really changed. So continuing with this time frame, it's going to depend on the number of pages, you know, how much editing they need, how long it's going to take. And it's also going to depend on you as far as your ability to turn around the edits. You know, once you put it in the hands of the developmental editor and they're reading it and they're writing their suggestions and they send it back to you, then it depends on you how long you get to sending them the next draft, right, of the process. So really it's hard to say how long this part of the production of a book takes. It's worth spending the time to make sure that what you're putting forth for readers is really great, you know, because your cover will sell the book, but if the story isn't really great, you've lost that reader, okay? They're not gonna buy another one. So you wanna make sure your story is compelling. And by the way, a shameless plug here, I am a developmental editor, so if you decide that you would like to work with an editor and you're looking for one, I'd love to work with you guys. And I do offer a 50% discount for Sandy's peeps. So, all right, so once you have your story all fleshed out, it's ready for readers to get their hands on it, the next step is copy editing. Okay, now copy editing is grammar, punctuation, all of the, you know, particulars of style that are standard for the industry, okay, professional quality of the text. So this is not looking at your characters, this is not looking at your, you know, tension, this is just the mechanics. Okay, making sure the quality of the mechanics is there. Professional editors charge usually by word. Most of them charge by word, and some do have some flat rates. So, you know, it's just really varies. But you do want to get a professional and know your friend who's an English teacher should not be the one doing your copy editing, okay? Your friend that is really a great grammar Nazi should not be your copy editor. They're good for proofreading, which we're going to talk about next, but not copy editing. You really want a professional who has the manual that the industry uses, you know, that's going to make sure that your book is at the level of quality of any of the books that are being put out there by Penguin and Simon and Schuster and Random House and all the big guys, okay? Especially, you know, if we're talking about self-publishing, you want your book to not look like it's been self-published, right? So this is a key part of that. They know industry standards and they will apply it. The copy editor is going to send it back to you, and you are going to then go through it and accept their changes. And once they've done it, it's a good idea to get your English teacher friends to have a go at it, because no matter how good the copy editor is, there will be things that slip past them. There will be typos, okay, that slip past. There is no book that is published that is error-free, in even the Bible. You know, I was reading my Bible the other day and I came across a typo. And I was like, seriously, how many thousands and millions of times has this thing been published and they have this typo? So, you know, typos slip past everybody. But that's where your friend who's an English teacher is good, is a proofreader. And some proofreaders do charge for doing that. But if you can get a really great friend to have a go at it, that's always good. Time frame. How long will it take to copy edit? Well, usually it takes between 3 to 4 weeks. It takes a professional copy editor will take about 3 to 4 weeks to really comb through your book. They go through it several times looking for very specific things. And when it returns to you, you have to accept the changes, you know, that they've made. And some of them you'll have to address, because copy editors will occasionally point out if they feel that a word choice might not be right or the best one, you know, because sometimes typo things, you know, where you type a word that is actually not the word you meant, but it's a legit word. And so they may question you. They may have some questions about some of your word choices, but they are not there to help you with any of the content, right? So those issues that you would deal with them are going to be very few. Sometimes it's also genre element issues. Like, for example, with my book, you know, it's a fantasy, so there's a lot of titles, and different fantasy worlds deal with titles differently. Some fantasy worlds capitalize titles all the time, no matter what the context, and some accept common usage where you only capitalize when it's actually in exchange of the person's name. So that was a comment that Amy and I went through and you know, addressed for my book. So things like that. So you're looking at 3 to 4 weeks copy editing. Now, some copy editors, they do developmental editing as well. That's fine. However, I always prefer to keep this into 2 different people, because I find that the more you read a text, the less you're going to see the errors, okay? Because your brain begins to fill in what should be there or how it should be. So it's a good idea, even though some do offer to do developmental editing and copy editing, to actually have separate people, so that a complete fresh set of eyes that is looking just for industry standard quality will go through it for copy edit, you know? But that's also your choice, you know? But that's my personal preference. Once you've got your copy editing, then comes the really fun part, which is the cover design. It's also the most painful part, because the cover is critical, right? And so finding the right cover designer, getting the right concept done, it takes time. It takes time. And you might go through a couple of different people that you want to, you know, ask for some samples or whatever from. before you find the one that is going to see your vision of your book and work with you. Cover designers sometimes also will do the interior formatting. That is part of what they do. And if you find a cover designer that also will provide the interior files for you, that is awesome, because all of the design elements will be in one place. If not, if you have to find a separate formatter for the interiors, then you're going to want to get certain things from the cover designer so that your formatter will be able to match and have the design and the flavor of your book be all the same, you know. But some do it so you can just get it all in one place. Cover design, you know, you should receive not only your ready for use for your different formats cover, you should also receive the file with layers, okay? And this is very important because when you go to create promotional materials for your marketing, you want the layers so that you can take pieces from the cover to, you know, to draft your social media posts and, you know, your ads and your trailers. You're not, you know, so you can pull different pieces. And you can see behind me, you know, some of the pieces of mine that, you know, were the different layers that she pulled to put together the Zoom background for this. So you want to make sure that your cover designer also provides your layers, okay? And your font, and I didn't write that down on there, but your font, make sure you know what font they're using and that you have it for your own design of your promotional material so that everything is cohesive and looks really great, you know, and professional. So you're going to need the layers. If you have to purchase images for your cover, you need to make sure that you get a commercial use license for the artwork, okay? Most cover designers, they will purchase everything themselves, okay? The cost that they charge you includes the cost of the art, and when they give you your book, they are basically certifying that yes, they had the right to use those pictures, and yes, you have the right to commercially use them. It's good to ask, you know, and make sure that they do either it's original work that they're doing, or if they're using stock images, that they do have those commercial licenses. But sometimes, you know, you might have to buy your own stock images. And so just make sure you get the commercial license. And there's some places that you can get free for even commercial use, you know, licenses. So it's really about just hunting down the art that goes for your book. Right. And Amy, I don't see anybody. I do see you, but I see only a few people. So if anybody is like waving frantically at me, like wanting me to slow down, could you let me know?
I'll let you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I wish someone would do that. You want me to do that? I'll start doing that. That would be great.
Wait. Waving frantically at me?
Waving frantically, yeah. I'm going to start doing that.
Well, it's just because, you know, I don't get to see everybody when I'm sharing the screen. But so I don't know if anybody's going, slow down, you know.
It's all good. I'll let you know.
There's so much info and I want to get through it. All right, so cover design. Where was I? Okay, we did that. All right, interior formattings. Like I said, sometimes the cover designer will do the interiors as well. Other times you may have to get somebody who does that specifically. Once you have your file ready for print, okay, it's gone through the editing and the proofreading, then you're ready to put it together for book. You need a print book file, and you also need for ebook publishing. Okay, so there's several different files you will get back from them. Usually a PDF for the print book, and EPUB, Mobi for ebooks. Those are the most common, and most platforms accept those too. Interior formatting. All right, so there's several types of ebooks. Like I said, EPUB, Mobi, there's a few others. They should be able to provide you with all the different formats that you need. Also, depending on the platform, they might need to tweak it. Sometimes when you upload it to Amazon, it'll accept it and be perfect. But then when you switch over to Ingram, or if you're uploading it onto like one of the aggregators like Smashwords or Draft2Digital, it might mess up some of the spacing or whatever, so they may have to tweak for the platform. Most of the time that happens with the cover. Sometimes you need to adjust the covers for the different platforms, even though technically it's the same size all around. I'm not sure what the deal is. It's tech stuff that I don't understand. Right. And I can send this to Amy, so you don't have to like worry about like, oh my gosh, I'm scribbling everything, you know? So we can do that. All right. Cover and formatting, creating the files for cover. All right, so time frame, how long does it take? It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get your cover and your interiors formatted and done and ready to go. So you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks for this process. And cover design, you can start working during your copy editing time, you know? So that's something that you can start a little earlier. All right, publishing, where do you put it? Where are you gonna self-publish? All right, so Amazon is the main player, right? So uploading your files and setting up your title on Amazon takes about 3 to 5 days, depending on if they have issues and that they kick back to you, okay? If they have issues, then you have to send it back to your person and they have to tweak it. And you have to reload it and they have to review it. So that's about the average time for getting it ready so that the system says you're good to go, right? And then of course you have to order a proof if you're gonna do print, and that takes about 5 to 7 days to get here. Usually when you order a proof, they try to expedite it and get it to you really, really fast. COVID has messed that up and proofs are taking longer along with everything else, but you know, that's just the new way of life. So Ingram is the other one you absolutely want to be on, okay? Ingram is the platform from where bookstores and libraries order books. So you really want to have your book available through Ingram, okay? You can have it just on Amazon and you can work with bookstores on consignment basis. But Ingram is a much more professional way to do it. If you go to a bookstore and you're offering them your book, you want your book in their store and they can order it, that's always going to be better. It's always going to have a more professional feel. There is a cost for setting up on Ingram. Amazon, you've got an account, you upload for free, and the only cost is when you order the books. On Ingram, there is a setup cost for the book, and it goes back and forth. There are times when Ingram is charging you for making the changes to the file, and occasionally they don't charge you for making the changes for the file. But you know, I guess that just depends on where they are at that moment. But this is a good platform to do, and the other reason that Ingram is a really good one to have is because Ingram has and offers hardcover books. You know, on Amazon, when you have a print book, it's going to be a paperback. They don't have very many options for it. You either get glossy cover or matte cover, and that's pretty much the only extent of options that you have. You have some paper options of like cream or white, you know, but you don't really have many options with Amazon. It's just a paperback. Ingram gives you wonderful options. You can even have not just hardcover, but you can have like dust jackets, you know, so you can have a dust jacket for your book. So it's a really cool thing for like ordering different kinds of printed books. And, you know, one of the cool things you could do is have your usual books that you give out or your paperback, but maybe you have for Christmas special edition hardcover or something, you know. So it's a good one also for that, just that it offers more perks in that department. There's other platforms that you can use, and most of these are called aggregators. And what they do is they take your file and they put it into every available ebook sale channel, okay? And so instead of you having to go and get an account with every single one, you just get this account with either Draft2Digital or Smashwords, and I think there's another one. And they do it all for you. And then whenever they sell stuff, they keep a portion and then they give you your royalties. And so they're a great option because you can get your ebooks everywhere. You can get them on barnesandnoble.com, you get them on Kobo, you get them on iBook. It's a real fast way to do it. Some of these are also cool, as like in Smashwords, it's really cool because they also offer you the option to have like discount codes. So you can create specific discount codes for events that you're at. So they're good only for X amount of time. And so it gives you more options to play with. Draft2Digital has been working on trying to get a print on demand option. They're wanting to go in that direction. They have not yet gone that direction, but they're working on it. There is something to be said for doing Amazon exclusively. If you do the Kindle, you know, unlimited and exclusive, instead of having your book out on every single platform of ebook, you can actually make more money sticking with Kindle, because if you do Kindle Unlimited, people borrow your book and you get paid per page they read, which, you know, in theory could actually be more than outright purchasing the ebook. So there is something to consider there as far as, you know, do you want to actually go with an aggregator or just go with the big guy? You know, I mean, as much as we love to hate Amazon, they do have the market sort of cornered. So before you hit publish, you've uploaded all your files, everything's ready to go. Before you actually go live, you need to consider the time for your pre-launch marketing, okay? So this is part of the timeline that, you know, that Sandy and Amy would be working with you on. And this is before it hits live, before you launch. So here's what you have to consider. Pre-order option, okay? A pre-order window of time where people can order the book, but they don't get it yet, is a great tool, because the more people you can get to pre-order when it goes live, those sale numbers hit hard and your ranks go up, okay, and your visibility goes up. So pre-order is a great thing to do. Amazon only offers pre-order with ebooks. They don't currently offer a pre-order option for a paperback, for a print on demand, which is really sad, but you know, that's how they are. And so you can go up to 90 days before your launch party. You can start the pre-order 90 days before it goes live. That's a lot of time to be pushing the pre-order, and that's a lot of time for people who buy it to have to wait to actually get it. You know, we're in a very, like, you know, instant gratification society. So it's better if you just do maybe a 2-week window before your launch party, okay? Because for 2 weeks you can really hit up pre-orders with all your fans and your social media, and your marketing team can be doing the pre-orders, some ads, and 2 weeks, you know, if they have to just wait 2 weeks to get that book, it's just enough anticipation without them, you know, kind of forgetting, oh yeah, I forgot I had bought that, you know. So technically you can go up to 90 days, but 2 weeks is about right. Advanced review copies, okay? It's a good idea to look for and give away some advanced review copies to readers, so that when the book goes live, those people can go in and put a review right away, okay? And the more reviews you have, the more the algorithm will begin to push your book. So, you know, you can hit up your local librarians, you know, and offer them a free copy, maybe some local book club peoples, you know, and offer free copies to them. Other people who are wonderful friends that are readers, you know, give them advance copies, so that, you know, give them like a month in advance, you know, the book, or, you know, a month and a half, so that they have time to read it. And so when you hit live, when it's the launch weekend or week, they can go in right away and put those reviews, you know, and help with the ranks and help with the algorithm. Now, professional reviewers, they want the book between 4 to 6 months ahead of the launch, okay, before it's released. So when I'm talking about professional reviewers, I'm talking about you sending it out to like the reviewers at Publishers Weekly, the reviewers of New York Times, USA Today, you know, all those people who you hope will review your book and give it that exposure, okay? They want it 4 to 6 months in advance. So once you have your final developmental edited copy, you can send them a copy of your book called a galley, okay? That is, they know it has not yet been copy edited and stuff, so they know it still needs that work, but you can start getting it into people's hands. Or you can wait until it's already been copy edited, you know, especially if you're a small press or indie, you want to put your best foot forward, and you can send them a proof, you know, of your book, and put a sticker on it that says, you know, it has not yet been fully developed and whatever. So if it still has some typos, they don't ding you on it. But it's a good idea to go ahead and start sending it out to the big guns, you know, because let's face it, they might not review it, but maybe they will, you know. But if they never have it in their hands, they definitely can't. So, you know, it's a good idea to just put it out there, you know. You spend a little money getting it out there, but, you know, if they like it and they review it, that'd be awesome. Pre-launch marketing, you know, you're using the time of your ARC, your advanced reviews, you're using your time of the pre-ordering to promote, to build that buzz, you know, to plan the launch event, to plan giveaways, to invite fellow authors to participate that are in your genre, to create your social media posts, you know. Some of the things that you can do with your social media posts is like maybe character profiles, you know, to give people a sense of who the characters are, or quotes from your book that will be intriguing and make them want to read it. You can run some Facebook ads during this time. So, you know, 4 months to 6 months before the launch date, you want to start doing marketing. You want to start putting out there, you know, that your book is coming, to build that buzz. So total time, right? Because that's what we're talking about, is timelines. So once you are ready for copy editing, The production of the files, the artwork and everything, you're talking about 8 to 9 weeks. Okay, anywhere between 8 to 9 weeks to get all the files, the copy editing, the cover, the formatting, all of that done. Okay, and then you can start your, oops, what did I do? And then you can start doing your ARCs and your pre-orders and things like that, and get ready for your official release. You want to make sure that you have, you know, at least the 4 months to get it into possible reviewers. Some planning tips. Okay, so like that's a lot of elements to think about. I think sometimes it works best to work backwards. Like you decide, I want to have this book live in July, right? So then you start working it backwards. So, okay, 4 months or 6 months before July is this date, 8 to 9 weeks, you know, before that is this date. So I have to be ready with my rough draft and my developmental editing all done by X date, you know. It works well that way. Or, you know, if you're not sure, because the developmental editing phase can take a lot longer sometimes. If you're not sure, you could start planning the timeline once you are done with the developmental edits, once it's ready to go to copy editing. Because copy editing and all the other stuff is very finite times, whereas developmental editing can take different time frames depending on how long it takes your developmental editor to give you your feedback and how long it takes for you to rewrite. So you can start counting from the moment that it goes into copy editing and count out your weeks for copy editing, for cover design, for formatting, pre-ordering, the reviewers and such, and then select a date that way, you know. So those are the 2 ways that you can plan out your timeline. Either work backwards from a date you really, really want to do, or work forwards once you have reached the point of copy editing, and then decide when you're going to release it. Once you've released a book, the first book, you really do want to try to release the next book. You know, people say 6 months is what most of the readers want, you know, to have something new within 6 months. You know, most of us can't really do that because, you know, most of us are working. A year, you know, so you want to plan out so that if you release your first book, you know, July 2020, that your next book will be out by at least July 2021, you know. So once you've got your first book out, you really want to keep getting the books out on a regular schedule that your fans will know is coming. And in between, you know, you want to be posting things with your website or with a newsletter on your social media that will keep your fans engaged. You know, short stories or backgrounds or pieces of, you know, backstory that didn't make it into the book. You know, you share those and stuff, character profiles, whatever, to keep them engaged as you're working towards delivering the next novel. So that's an element of the production timeline that you need to really consider, you know, is what are going to be your bridge texts? How are you going to remain connected to your readers and keep them engaged with you and with your books? So I just threw a lot of information at you. So I hope it was okay. So that's me. So next is just questions. Go ahead and stop the share. All right, so anybody have questions after that really dizzying? Yes.
Dawn does.
Yes, Dawn.
Okay, I have 2 questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so I have not used Ingram for a couple of decades. The last time I used them, they charged 70%. So do they still charge 70%?
No. No, the way they're working it now is they charge a setup fee for your files. I think it's $50
Okay.
to set up your print book and your ebook, and then they charge you for your order, and the more books you order, the less money it costs you per book. So they have a scaffolded thing that way. But they're not doing it by percentage.
Okay. Yeah, because that, I went with them for I think just a year, and I finally just said the hell with this, because I wasn't getting any money. I mean, it's like a dollar here and a dollar there. It's like, that's ridiculous, And my second question is about cover design.
Yes.
So what I would like to know is, okay, so when you start working with an artist for your cover design, how do you get everything across to them so they can develop the cover? Because to me, that's the most difficult thing.
It is, and it's crucial. So some cover designers will send you a questionnaire. A lot of them have like a questionnaire that you fill out where you provide them, a summary of the book, other pieces of information of like what you envision for your cover. Some of them want you to describe kind of what you're thinking for it, your bio and things like that. And then what I find to be the best way to work with a cover designer is to, and this depends on the cover. Some of them don't want to do this, but the best way I found is to have a time where you kind of meet with them, either physically in together when we used to be physically able to be together, or through Zoom this last time ever. And they share their screen with you, and they begin to put together different elements, and you begin to dialogue like, well, I kind of like that, but I don't like that, or can we try this? And you kind of develop together in that session a basic concept, that then they will go back and polish and do all the beautiful work that they need to do, because it's just basically a mock-up, let's say. But right. You have the essence and you know what you're getting, So I find that kind of a collaborative process is really the best, that we encourage that a lot with our authors and our cover designers. Okay. Sometimes cover designers may have like a gallery of work that they already have. So they may ask you to look at it and select some that is more or less kind of what you're looking at, so that they have a sense of, from what they have already done, what kinds of things appeal to you, and they can begin to pull from. But the more collaborative that you're able to be with them, I think it works the best. It becomes more satisfactory in the end, because it's a vision that both of you have built, and that really matches for your book.
Your cover is stunning.
Thank you. Yes,
stunning. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, he really outdid himself. And the funny thing is, we started off with so many different ideas, At one point I wanted just a sword floating in space, and he was like, okay, Fern, but no. And so
get real.
Yeah.
So can you share your cover designer, his name?
Yes. So his name is Verstant Shelton, and I'll put it in the chat, actually.
Good idea. Yeah.
That way you guys can have it, and I'll put his email. Verstant Shelton. gmail.com. Yes, and he is really good. I mean, he's done most of our Inklings covers. We do work with another gentleman who's also fantastic, Arthur. So, because at some point or another, you need more than one, because, it starts getting heavy on the one person. But I knew that I was going to get Burr, because he's just awesome, you know.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Any other questions on all this awesome timeline stuff that we flew past?
Julie has one.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Jeremy had his hand up there too, but I'll go ahead and jump in. It seems to me that a lot of what you've described is more the timeline for a fiction book than for a nonfiction book. So could you spend a few minutes talking about any differences you see between the two types of book?
Yeah, actually the actual production of the book is the same. The content of, for example, when you're working with a developmental editor on a nonfiction book, it's going to be a very different discussion, you know, and it may be a lot more collaborative process. Because, you know, they're not looking at story elements, they're looking at your nonfiction elements and the text. So that part is going to be very different. The copy editor for nonfiction, it's a good idea to go with a copy editor that has had experience copy editing nonfiction texts, because they're going to be more familiar with some of the standards of usage for formatting and for, you know, footnotes, captions, you know, these kinds of elements. You really want a copy editor that's going to know how those need to look for it to be an industry standard book. So for when you select a copy editor, you really want to get references and you want to make sure that they've had experience with the kind of nonfiction that you're working with, you know. Interior designers, the same thing. You want to really look for someone who has designed the interiors of nonfiction text, especially if you're going to be having a lot of graphics. You know, they need to be able to know how to embed the graphics properly, how to do the captions and the footnotes properly, you know, for the formatting part of it. So finding the people, you know, you may not use the same people as a fiction book because they may not have the experience. And that there's some copy editors and some formatters that do a broad range of work, you know, but it's important that they be able to show you what they've done that is similar to what you're working on, you know, to make sure that your project's going to look professional. And as far as covers go, it's really about making sure how do the books that are kind of in the same topic, what kinds of covers do those books that are currently on the shelf, what kinds of covers do they have? You know, what kinds of ways of design do they use? And then finding a cover artist that can match it, you know, that can give you something that will look like it belongs alongside all the other books, you know, produced by I think the biggest difference would be definitely who you choose to work with, you know. The process itself is the same, because you're still going to do pre-orders, you know, for your book. You're still going to have your launch. You're still going to want to have your reviewers, you know, and your reviewers, who you select for your reviewers, might be very specific. Depending on the topic of your book, you may want, like, if it's an analysis of a historic battle or something, you may want to reach out to like history professors and see if they will, you know, at UH or at Rice or at, you know, HBU, and get them to review it, you know, because they're experts. And plus that'll give you an opportunity to put it in their hands, and maybe they'll buy it for their classes, you know, so it's double opportunity there. And the marketing, of course, is going to be very different. You know, the marketing is going to be very different because you're going to look for opportunities like, you know, reaching out to universities and places that might use it as a textbook, or look for conferences in the field that it is, you know, if you're doing a a health book or a nutrition book, then you want to find like some conferences and conventions where you might be able to speak, where you might be able to sell your book, you know. So the marketing aspect is going to be different, but the timeline, as far as like time frame for doing it, it's pretty much the same. You're talking about, you know, to really get a book out, you're talking about 8 months, you know, 8 months to a year. And that's just, you know, to make sure it's really good and that you have the time to prep and build buzz before you hit launch. I think you're muted, Julie.
Sorry. The stage you talked a lot about that I'm just not seeing for a nonfiction book in the same way as the developmental editor. A nonfiction book has a topic and it many times goes chronologically. I just read one about epidemics, COVID, and it's basically starts with the Spanish flu and comes up to 1990. It's just very chronological. Then on the other hand, I know some books, like some books that are nonfiction, but they become more interesting to readers because they bring a personal story into it, like Lax, whatever her first name is, and the story of her, you know, the immortal life of, can't think of her first name, Lax. So that, or the recent one that the Rice professor won the award for, he talks about a specific case in history and what happened there. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, in my own nonfiction book, the only one thing I struggled with was the organization. Should I have it just straight chronological, or should I have a memoir chapter, a how-to chapter, a memoir chapter, a how-to chapter? What do I do with my 49 days of walking the Camino? Do I put those interspersed throughout or have them all together in one chapter? Anyway, but I just spent months thinking about that and ended up doing it the way I decided worked best. And maybe that a developmental editor could help you work with. But the thing is, my book is a hybrid and most nonfiction books aren't.
Well, you know, you have to get the right, a developmental editor-author relationship is very intimate. You have to really trust your editor. You know, you have to believe that they know what they're doing. You know, they have to have the expertise, and you have to trust them, because for a nonfiction, a lot of times with a nonfiction author, you're also, as an editor, peeling back layers sometimes of experience that could bring about a lot of trauma, to relive trauma or things like that. So, you know, as an editor, you have to be very careful how you work with your nonfiction authors, especially in the field of memoir. And when it's a hybrid where you're doing some exposition and some memoir, then you have to know how to balance it out, because you have to think about who the audience is going to be and how to engage them in the book so that when they get to exposition, they don't feel bored, right? And wishing that the story would just keep going and they skip that section, you know, but at the same time that the story doesn't, you know, bore them as well, or, you know, or not honor the exposition. So it's a very careful working with the text. I think that, you know, if you find a really good editor that can work with a nonfiction author, the process can be just as awesome as with a fiction book, you know, because it's really about just what are the needs of the text? What are the needs of the author for bringing forth this into the world? You know, what are you trying to express? How is that best placed, you know? So it is different, because it's not going to be as much as, like, with fiction books. Usually you get the book as the editor, you read through the entire book as the editor, and then you send back, here's what I think we need to do, and here's where we need to flesh out, and blah, 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 right? With nonfiction books, more often than not, you're working on individual sections with the author. You know, you get an individual section, you really work with it, you get the next individual section, you work with it, and then once you've worked all the pieces, then you work with the author on how are these pieces going to actually fit together? You know, how do they connect? How can we, you know, what is going to be the connective tissue between one section and the other? And once you've got that, then you do a full read to see how it feels and flows, and you work it that way. You know, so there's actually extra steps with a nonfiction book that, you know, a fiction book doesn't have. But it can be as beneficial to the author, because the biggest benefit, not just to help you, you know, format and put it together, but one of the biggest benefits of the developmental editor is getting a reader's perspective that is a professional writer, you know, and someone who isn't you and who doesn't have in their head how everything should go and what you really meant is giving you feedback, you know. And so when the editor says, you know, I really thought that the purpose of this section was blah, and you intended something totally different, you know, then you can work together on, okay, how can we bring it to so that it's saying what you needed to say? You know, you see what I'm saying? So I think it's a valuable relationship. I think you just have to find the right person, you know.
I'll just recount one thing, which I still find amusing, is I had been working with my critique book, and they'd heard various chapters over a course of a couple of years. But I took a chapter in, and there was a new person there. And when I finished reading it, she said, but where's the characterization? Where are the descriptions? Where are the? And she thought it was a piece of fiction, not nonfiction. And she couldn't, you know, it was just funny. Everyone laughed because she was judging it as a work of fiction.
And you know what? There is something to be said for looking at the narrative portions of a nonfiction book in kind of that light, because in a way it kind of helps you to distance yourself from the fact that it was you know, and the people that you knew going through that experience, if you kind of address them a little bit as characters, right? But that doesn't mean you're going to like totally, you know, make stuff up, because it's nonfiction, you know. But there sometimes I know that when I work with memoirists, it's good to help them sometimes look at it as the character, right? Just so that in certain moments when they're reliving things that are very painful, that it's not as difficult. And sometimes you also have to just give it time, you know, to peel back some layers. So it's a much more intimate, I think, more than fiction writers, I think, you know, because you have to really understand this is somebody's life, right? They're not a character. So, yeah. And I think Jeremy had a question.
No, not really. I was saying bye to James. He was saying, well, first of all, I want to say you're so cool, Fern. Oh my gosh, I loved it. It was awesome. And if you know, writing a game book is the same as writing. So the timeline works the same way. The marketing is a little bit different, and of course, the publishing, meaning self-publishing, it's different. I can't play in the Amazon market like you guys can, because they won't print on demand a game book, because it is a hardback book no matter what. It's not it's unless I kept a bunch of them or kept them, you know, in a warehouse for Amazon, which is what the big publishers of RPGs do. However, we have our own Amazon, DriveThruRPG, and Studio 2 to a degree. So DriveThruRPG is our Amazon for game books, and they're amazing. And they do it all print on demand. They print our hardback books. They're so cool. They're almost as cool as you. And Studio 2, they'll put it in stores for you, like Barnes and Nobles, things like that, which is great, meaning they'll print it and they'll put it out there to hobby shops and stuff and say, hey, how many do you want? Take care. What was I was going to say? Oh, illustration wise, Dawn is she still there? Okay, Dawn. I'm an illustrator. I've done lots of illustration for lots of books in lots of different settings for books. Of course, I'm the illustrator for my game book. And what I will say about that I think is a good point when it comes to cover artists, that number one, you're going to know a really good cover artist because they're going to know the questions to ask right off the bat. So you don't need to worry about like, what do I need to tell them? A really good cover artist is going to know exactly how to work with you, not vice versa. You're the author. You're an author. You need to worry about their job. Their job is to do a cover. And the second thing I will say is find ones that have illustration portfolios and or resumes that include marketing too. If they've done marketing work, then they are gold, because they know that they can take your like back cover little synopsis of your book and they'll just make it magic. So those are two things. Look for some people who have marketing background in illustration and they know the questions to ask. You'll know right off the bat.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And so then, so I don't know. So game books are their own animals. So finding a developmental editor, Fern, I'm like, I mean, I know you can do it because you do sci-fi fantasy. That's not a problem for you. And it is sci-fi fantasy. That's something I've kind of been on the fence about because it is so specific. And there's a lot of the mechanics portion of the game. And it's like, okay, finding a developmental writer is going to understand the mechanics portion of things and what makes good mechanics or not good mechanics.
Well, and here's the thing. You need to find someone who's a developmental editor that is also a gamer. I mean, there are developmental editors out there who are gamers, and so they will be able to understand, you know, the actual thing because they've experienced it, they've done the games, you know, and so they'll be able to help you to develop it. It's all about finding the person with the right background for it, you know, because, you know, like I've played some like D&D and, you know, because I mean, I like it. But my dungeon master disappeared on us, and so you know now I'm homeless. But the
Planetbound, darling.
I put on Facebook like I'm looking for a group, and so several people suggested where to find one. But yes, I mean just find just keep researching and reaching out to different groups. You know, this is where some of the writing community can be very useful, like the Houston Writers Guild and Write Space Houston and all these different writers group like the Houston Authors Writing Group. They have contacts and they have professionals that they've brought in for conferences or that they are in communication with or that they're bringing in to talk, you know, like with Sandy, you know, and them. She knows all these different people in the community. So just reaching out and saying, hey, I really need a developmental editor that will understand my kind of.
Kelly might know.
Kelly might actually be a great editor for you.
Yeah,
you know, she does developmental edit, right. And she's a very big gamer, you know.
That's a good point. It's a little bit more dog-eat-dog. I would say, you know, writers are so wonderfully supportive of each other. So I say, so I've experienced. That's why I love playing with authors. And I love that the game book is authorship because the gaming market is a little bit more, you know, and so finding people, maybe I've found it a little more challenging because it's like, no, everybody wants their little piece of the pie. I don't want to create anything. It's just my observation.
Yeah, well, and, you know, I mean, from the perspective of the writing community, it's all about getting really great products, really great books out there and leaving a legacy of words that will impact the world long after we've gone. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's what we do, you know. So, yeah. But I would reach out to Kelly. She might actually be the right dev editor for you, my friend. And she just opened her website for developmental editing.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take a look.
So she's looking for clients, and I'm looking for clients.
I think I shared it in the group. I'm pretty sure I did. I can reshare it, but I'm pretty sure I did, Jeremy.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Yeah.
I can ask her directly if I can't find it.
Yeah. So does anyone else have any questions? I know it is after 8, and so I want to be.
Have we gone over
time? No, you're not okay. I'm not like Russell. I'm not going to be like, get off. But does anyone else have any other questions or anything for Fern before we let her go? No? We're all
Good.
Fabulous. It was fabulous.
Oh, good. Sandy's going to love to hear that. I'm going to send her a text right after this. Well, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I will give you updates about Sandy. You'll either be hearing from me on Friday. Again, hey, third time's a charm. We're going to nail this mastermind thing. Or it'll be Sandy. So either way, we'll do the mastermind on Friday. Have a great rest of your week, you guys. I will see you then.